Hey everybody, it's Adam again. Today we're going to work on the 1995 BMW 318 Ti E36 winter beater. So this is the car that has exclusively winter beater duty, as well as some off-road trail riding, as you guys have seen in the video in the past. But basically earlier this week I was underneath there replacing the clutch slave cylinder, which was a pretty quick process in itself. Found out I had a little hole in the boot on the end of it, and I had been leaking some fluid out of there. That was about 3 minutes. While I was rolling around underneath, I noticed a couple of things were going on here that need to be addressed before we take it on the road this winter. So right here we got a cut boot on the passenger side, as well as on the driver's side there on the tie rods. And then the outer ball joint here was a little bit loose on this passenger side tie rod. So we're gonna go ahead and change out the tie rods on this today, and then she ought to be ready to go for the winter time. Okay, we're gonna start out by taking the tire off here. We got a 19mm lug nut on the outside of this E36. Get about 2 seconds into this one and I already pinched my finger. Look at that. As you can see, she's been sitting for a little while this summer. Rotors aren't quite locked up, but we got some nice surface rust on top of there. So that'll clean right off as soon as we get her on the road. One thing we're going to do here as we start working on this, I'm going to go inside and turn it full lock here to the passenger side to the right. We get some more access to that tie rod stud on the outer tie rod there. Okay, out here we've got a, let's see, 16mm nut on the outside of that. Funny thing about the new tie rod here, this one's actually a 17 on the outside of here. So something worth noting, if you end up getting new tie rods, just double check, make sure you got the right size of equipment here to be doing the job. We're going to go ahead and use a ball joint separator on this. Basically what happens is you hook it around the bottom side of the steering knuckle here, and then you screw in this bolt and it pushes that stud through here. So it's a tapered stud up inside there to center this and keep it nice and tight. If you don't have one of these, since we're really not worried about saving the threads on this guy, you could also use a hammer and just beat that down and try to knock it off of there. But we're going to use the ball joint. Oh, so there we go. So didn't even need to use this guy underneath there. But you know, if you want to save this, say you're replacing something else on your steering system, typically you'd want to use the separator there. And that is loose. That feels wow. So it's a good thing that we're replacing this here today. You can also see this boot's cut on here as well on the ball joint. So, you know, yeah, it was definitely time to replace this tie rod out here. So next up, we're going to go ahead and remove the inner tie rod from the rack itself. Since I can't find a suitable wrench to put around there, we're going to go ahead and use these vice grips, and I'm hoping she'll just come right off. Ah. Anyone know where to get a good haircut at around here? It's about time to get these locks cut, I think. But we're going to go ahead and just rip right on there. There we go. Here's the new tie rod. You can barely turn that thing by, in fact, I can't even turn that thing by hand. On the outside you can turn it a little bit, but she's still pretty stuck on there. All right, we'll go ahead and get this boot off of here, and then we're gonna measure up the length of this tie rod to the old one and get it set at least initially there, and we will get this side reassembled. So we gotta find a special calibrated piece of wood here, the right length, set up our template. Go nice and tight down on this end. We're going to stretch this out here. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and drive this guy in until it gets to where we want to see it down here on our witness mark. There we go. Yep. All right, so we're just going to hand tighten this nut on here for now. That way she's close enough there. Once it's in the car and everything else is tightened up, that will be one of the last things that we secure down. And this ought to get us close enough. I would say that is close enough for me. So we're going to go ahead and put this passenger side on the car, get her fastened down, and we'll get on to the driver's side. There's a washer on there, and basically this is the one that I pulled off, but it's got a tab that you tap into a keyway up on the rack itself. So we're going to go ahead and get this guy in here, and I need to go find my wrench because I'm not going to want to use the vice grips to put that back together, but we'll get there in a second. All right, so we've got the outer tie rod stud mounted up here. We tightened up our jam nut down here. We also tightened up the inner tie rod ball stud here, the ball joint going into the rack. Last thing we're going to do, basically you get this down to the boot groove over here. And it is different than the OEM, where on the OEM side there was like a donut here, and the boot itself was still big. So this aftermarket one is a little different, but you know, with this car, this is better than what we had on there, that's for sure. So we'll get through. So something I missed on the other side as I was putting it back together, and I noticed it when I took this washer off here. So you've got the keyway that goes up into here. Actually, this piece is broken right off of there, so I don't know how much good it does. But basically, when you put this on here, it looks like they hammer down the side of the washer there, kind of as a locking feature on that inner tie rod hex there. So I'm gonna have to take the boot off the other side when I put it back together before I drive it to hammer that down. You know, they do a similar thing on the up here, actually, on the nuts that are up inside the hub. You basically hammer into the keyway on the spindle coming out of there. So And that is a wrap on this project. Overall, everything went together pretty nicely. One thing you really want to do is just double check your alignment after you put it together, even if you have it marked out on a board like that. But thanks for watching, and don't forget to hit subscribe.